Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the Peel Police Services Board for year 2024. So a very happy new year to everyone. We will begin by acknowledging the traditional land on which we gather. We would like to begin by acknowledging the land in which we gather and which the region of Peel operates is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, who are direct descendants of Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, we give our respect to its first inhabitants. Before we dwell into the agenda for the board meeting of January 26th, I'm happy to share that earlier today, the board convened to fulfill its obligation under the Police Services Act of electing a chair and vice chair for the calendar year. I'm delighted to announce that Nando Unica has once again been chosen as chair, while I have been honored with the position of vice chair once again. On behalf of Chair Unica, I extend our sincere gratitude to our colleagues on the board for their continued trust. Regrettably, Chair Nika is unable to join us this morning, and I will be chairing the meeting on his behalf. Additionally, on the board, I extend a warm welcome to our newest board member, Mississauga Councillor Matt Mahoney. Welcome. And Matt took his oath of office last week. We are truly excited to have him as part of the board, anticipating the valuable contributions he will bring. On that note, I'd like to express our gratitude to Bonnie Crombie for her dedicated service on the board and her years of public service as Mayor of Mississauga. One final note, let us take a moment to acknowledge that January is Crime Stoppers Month. We extend our sincere appreciation to Peel Crime Stoppers for their commendable contributions to the community and their steadfast support for the Peel Regional Police. With these reflections in mind, let us now move forward to the roll call and continue the remainder of the agenda. A roll call, all board members present except for Chair Nando Unica. Now I'd like to open it up to any declarations of conflict of interest. No, we're good. Okay, moving forward. Chief's update. So now I'd like to turn it over to the chief for an update.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to the board. Congratulations, Vice Chair Coley, and to Chair Unica and Councillor Mahoney. Look forward to continuing to work with you in a different capacity. We do have a few verbal updates, and with that, I think I'll begin with Superintendent Hiltz. Do you mind starting? I think he has an update as it pertains to RIDE programming, and then we'll move through a couple of the other deputies.
Thank you, Chief. Through the chair, I am proud to provide the board with some updates and final stats in relation to our this year's Festival RIDE program. As you know, our RIDE program kicked off November 12th and ended January 3rd. We committed 24 officers to the program, supported by our auxiliary members. Throughout the campaign, 12,472 vehicles were investigated, resulting in 4,123 roadside tests and 117 persons charged for impaired driving-related offenses. I want to highlight two separate occasions where RIDE investigations led to the seizure of two loaded prohibited firearms. Of interest, one of those firearms was a loaded Glock 9mm style 3D printed ghost gun with an attached laser sight. A round was loaded in the chamber, and the attached magazine was loaded with 17 rounds of ammunition. I want to take the opportunity to commend and recognize all our members who participated in this year's RIDE Festival program and thank them for their commitment and dedication to our community safety, road safety, and the Region of Peel's Vision Zero goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Huey. Much appreciated, and to the team that's been behind the RIDE coordination for sure. Deputy O'Doherty, can I pass it on to you for an update as it pertains to our ongoing efforts for our 911 Communication Center?
Good morning, and through the chair, 911 continues to be a very sensitive, and it should be, because it is the first call a person makes in likely the worst moment of their lives to reach us for service. Last year, I will tell you that the Peel Regional Police Call Center broke 1 million calls. That is a 22% increase from the year prior. And 750,000 of those were 911 calls. Of course, much focus has been on the misuse, which are non-emergency pocket dials and those calls that do not meet the standard for 911 emergency response. In fact, last board meeting, I had acknowledged that we would be doing some work in regards to a strategy to not only reduce, educate, but also improve call wait times. On that note, total call wait times reduced by about 20 seconds, about 17% last year. That number would actually have been greater if we had not set record numbers in the early part of 23, with strategies focusing on the second part of 23. Good news is that PRP will be likely the first major primary public safety answering point to implement a very new technology in relation and compliance with next generation 911 by next month. In March board report, we should start to see a more significant decrease in call wait times and an increase in the queue, which means we're able to parcel out the misuse calls and deal with those. And last but not least, I just wanted to ensure that the board is aware that our team, including Ms. Wilmot, our folks in our communication center, continue to work with council in relation to 911 fines and misuse and what that may look like. And those discussions are ongoing at this time, with research having been developed from other areas and also presented at those committee meetings. And that's my update.
Thank you, Anthony. And go ahead.
Yeah, so I believe we have a comment. Al Boughton.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy, through you, Chair. I think that you know that I took a day and did a shift at the 911, at the communications center. And I thought on the previous trips that I'd had there, where you just, kind of walk around and looking at it from a distance, what a difference to sit with a set of headphones on for a shift and watch how the staff works and the level of professionalism. I was blown away. One of the things that really impressed me was how they cleared the 911 calls that were bad calls. The operator that I was with, she was clearing calls the whole time, ones that had come in and are hang-ups and they get to, and every call has to, I think everybody here knows, every call that just goes dead and that somebody doesn't take, they have to call them back. Watching them clear those calls was amazing. They were probably clearing the calls in 8 to 10 seconds. They were, a call back, you've called here, it was a butt dial or a bad dial, and they would clear them. They were doing that all day, each of the people at the station. To the first call that came in while I was there was somebody who was reporting that their wife was trying to, was a gentleman, and he said his wife was attempted to kill him, and to watch the way they handled it, I was blown away. There was a level of professionalism there that I knew they were good. These people are great. We know with the new communications center, and I always say this, to fix 911, we need 4 things. So we need facility, we need hardware, we need software, we need people. And we can't do it with just one. But the bad calls, and if it's 40% or 38%, and I think, Deputy, it's somewhere in there, if you take 1 million calls, it's pretty easy to figure out that we got 400,000 bad calls in a year, or that are not really 911 calls. But they're doing a fabulous job there. As far as stopping those bad 911 calls, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again for the record, I don't want us to spend $2,000 worth of administrative time to send somebody a $50 invoice for a bad 911 call. Watching it there, I don't know how we're going to be able to do it, and I think there's going to have to be a lot of work and a lot of eyes on it to figure out what we can do. And I'm going to go back to, again, what I've said before, a lot of this is education. And we need to do it in the schools, in the community, whether it be ads on television, radio. We need to do a better job to let people know not to call 911 if they didn't get pepperoni on their pizza. And Your Worship, Mayor Brown has really taken this on, and I commend you for doing that, because we want to take the pressure off the 911 center, but we can't do it if people don't understand what the process is, and we have to call them back and all that. But to you and your team, what a fabulous group of people that are over there. And I did parade while I was there as well. This is just a great team, and they're doing a fabulous job. So to them, keep up the good work. I did commend them when I was over there. The issue of sending people an invoice will be a really, really big issue, and I don't know how we'll ever be able to do it without adding tons of staff, and with people with cell phones, where are you going to send the bill, and all the other things that you and I have talked about. But kudos to everybody in the comm center. They do fabulous work, and they're just about the best group of people I've ever met. So thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Button, for your continued support. I do believe I just want to open up to Nick just to update the board on our continued efforts alongside the board for our auto theft activity. We do know that there's an announcement on February 8th from a federal auto theft summit, and we have continued conversations across the province and nationally on it. So, Nick, maybe if I can just invite you to comment on it.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief, and through the chair, good morning, board. Yeah, we've selected a date and are deep in planning for our second annual Auto Summit, which will be March 20th. Very happy to inform that it has really created some momentum. We expect it will grow this year. It will be inclusive of more industry stakeholders and really more voices at the table that should be at the table. We've often talked about how enforcement alone isn't the panacea to begin addressing the issue, and very confident that March 20th we'll see partners and stakeholders who, under their purview, have the ability to make some legitimate change and begin addressing the issue. You know, and the Chief mentioned the summit on February 8th. I really believe that some of the work and advocacy from this board and this police service has resulted in the momentum that we're seeing and the stages that we're being provided to share the issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I believe we have a comment from Mayor Brown.
Yeah, to Deputy Chief Milovich, I just want to say thank you. You know, you've been extraordinary on this file. I know we've got that summit coming up on February 8th that you've been invited to, and I know I've been invited to attend as well. But it's not lost on me that the advocacy around auto thefts that is really everyone's struggling with now. And people will call in and upset. It's a Mississauga problem. It's a Brampton problem. No, it's a much broader Central Canada problem. And I want it, to be appreciated that it was our deputy chief that briefed the former public safety minister, that briefed the attorney general, that went to the port of Montreal. You've got a better knowledge set on how this is happening than I think any other police leader in the country. And so it makes me proud that Peel is leading the way. The Peel Police, the PRP is leading the way, helping solve a national crisis, $1 billion industry for organized crime. And if they take our advice on February 8th, that's going to, there are steps they can take that will solve this. And so I think it should give us a source of pride that, once again, this is a leading police force in the country for solutions. Oh, and just to say, I hope CBSA will be invited to our March 20th summit and they'll participate.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I believe Mr. Alboughton had a comment as well.
Through you, Chair. A deputy, great job on that. And I think a year or so ago when we originally talked, I said, you got to go to the Port of Montreal and have a look. And I know when you first came back, and for the good of this group, it's pretty overwhelming, isn't it? The size of the port, and if you remember our last auto summit, one of the MPs said, well, we can solve this problem, just open every container and look inside. Possible and not possible. And I believe that you opened 72 containers or whatever it is and found 110 vehicles, and you just did a random check when you were there in Montreal, and that the Port of Montreal really has said to you and others, it's not their problem, it's your problem. It's our problem because we're allowing cars to get stolen, and if they ended up in a container, it's not their problem. They're just simply shipping them out. But I think that it's, if you spend 30 seconds, Deputy, and just talk about the that Port of Montreal and what you learned from there and how we can, going forward, do a better job of working with them, because if we could stop that or have eyes on it, open containers, X-ray, and all the other stuff, I think we could do a much better job and reduce those numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if no other, yes, oh, please go ahead, Nick.
Oh, excellent. And yeah, I'd be happy to do that. You know, you're correct. I did have an opportunity to go to the port and see for myself. And, you know, the reality is it is a big, busy place. And I've said this before, I really, you know, it's the most obvious issue and probably the quickest and easiest to begin fixing because it's a vulnerability right now. You know, we have one of the largest auto theft units in the country. If we could encourage CBSA to devote even a fraction of the resources that we have here locally exclusively towards the inspection of containers, we would recover tens and tens of millions of dollars of vehicles. And that's the reality of it.
Thank you so much. No other comments? Okay, moving on to board member questions and or announcements. Any updates from anybody? I just wanted to add congratulations to the 50-year celebration this year for Peel Police, and it was a wonderful kickoff. I know all of us attended, and we're looking forward to a year filled with celebration. We're very proud of everything you all do on the front line and every day, and it was wonderful to see the history, and it was great to see individuals brought who have retired but were able to share their experience. So thank you for that. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed it, and we're going to enjoy this year with all of you. So moving on to approval of minutes. So minutes of the board meeting held Friday, November 24, 2023. Can I get Mr. Al Boughton and Len Carby as a seconder? Thank you so much. And now moving to, wow, we have a very short agenda. We're going to move very fast. New business, 2024 user fees. Deputy Chief Lauren Jackson, Chief Administrative Officer, any updates?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to comment on the report, it's a standard annual report. Many of our members will be familiar with seeing it. But just for the benefit to top up this year, the report's an annual report, of course, that we provide the board to outline the fees associated with services we provide the community and some third parties. The provision of these services generates revenue to the service on a cost recovery basis. So there's no revenue profit generated to the service by the provision of these services. This year, we see most rates remaining the same from 2022 to 2023 and forecast for 2024, with any adjustments you see due to economic adjustment. Just to provide slightly more information, we do kind of time studies on user fees on a 3-year basis, on a rolling basis. It allows us to update our wage and benefit rates year over year and enable us our continued ability to forecast accurately and agilely in year and year over year with respect to cost recovery expectations. Rates determined are kept up to date and are two parts. The provision of these services, just the cost to provide them, direct expenses associated, and a small administrative fee that covers our overhead, such as our people's time to manage the administration of that service. The forecasted budget increase reflected in this report is a one-time increase that we've increased the forecast for of $1.5 million. We don't expect that to continue in the long-term year-over-year basis, but we do expect to see a similar forecast and revenue generated this year, largely due to the central paid duties revenue that we're seeing come in with respect to our time on the LRT project in the region. Thank you, Chair, and welcome any questions.
Mr. Amadatia? Perfect, that's it. So can I get somebody to approve? Perfect, Matt Mahoney, seconder Len Carby. Thank you so much. Next, we have the annual body-worn camera report dated January 11th. Can I get Deputy Chief Anthony Eduardi to give an update?
Thank you, and through the board. The update and the report is pretty succinct. Just the highlights include that we've added close and over 200 new users to the body-worn camera program, and that compliance rates have been maintained even though there's new users, new experiences, and that our redaction team last year redacted over 700,000 pieces of evidence. We've collected over 800,000 recordings and interactions. So it's that piece is not in the report. It will be included in next year's report in terms of the amount of work that's done on the back end to maintain the digital evidence management system and our compliance with redactions. And of course, we continue to work closely with community on developing new policies related to best practices, leading practices in body-worn camera. And those are my updates.
Thank you so much. Can I get someone to please receive the report? Al Boughton, can I get someone to second it? Yeah, okay, perfect. Amadatia had a question.
Thank you for the report. Is there a reason why we see lower compliance with our teams at the airport?
We're looking into that. We don't have, quite succinctly, I don't have an explanation for that, but we are looking into that, and we're looking deeply into the random audits that may suggest where compliance may not be as high at the airport. I want to reiterate, there's 5 components that we measure for full compliance, and in order for full compliance to be achieved, officer must meet all 5 components. We know in other jurisdictions, 3 out of the 5 components are met. That equals full compliance. Yet PRP continues to have compliance rates that exceed other jurisdictions. So we've noted that. We're looking into that, and we'll.
Okay. And you know, in the Section D, out of 119 citizen requests, 61 were disclosed. What are the reasons why, like just to give me perspective, we would reject a freedom of information request?
First and foremost, starts with the privacy and the requester. So if there's an individual who's not involved in the particular circumstance and it is not of public interest, it's not for public release, it would be denied. If we cannot redact the video to sufficiently protect the identification of an individual, certainly we would not release it. And then the third most common, but it's the least out of the 3 that I just talked about, is that there is no nexus to an event of public interest. That's very that's not used quite often, and generally that reason is escalated up to me, and we have not received any of those, so that those would not have been included in Section D.
So does a individual, well, just hypothetically, like a journalist or a member of the public who's curious or wants to understand an incident, if they were not directly involved in that incident, does our policy allow them to get access to the footage?
So our policy allows, where there's public interest, to make a request for public release. And and that's a different section, just under Section D, and we haven't had those. We haven't had that request.
Okay, and so what's the difference between C and D? Like, like a member making a request. Yeah, what is the difference between those 2?
Okay, so number of requests made by a member of the public to view in public. That's for that one I just talked about. It's for public viewing. The number of requests to view is generally set aside for those community members who have been involved in an interaction where body-worn camera was used, and they would go to a division. We're one of the agencies that set that up to view those. So they would meet criteria as they would be involved. They would be involved in that situation. Number of body-worn camera recordings released to the public by the service. There were no requests other than one that was made for an international award recognition, and so that number sort of speaks for itself as well.
I get it. And last question, you know, when an incident, you know, one of the reasons we refuse in Section C is when it's under investigation or before the court. If the legal counsel of an individual who's a subject of a court case wants the footage, do we provide it, or is that still refused because police are investigating?
No, at the, sorry, for public complaints or for a disclosure? Yeah, at the very earliest onset, within 2 weeks of a charge being filed, our team who handles those 800,000 redactions provides that through evidence.com. It's a proprietary digital evidence management tool that we use that is accessed by both the Crown's office and Defense office for copies of those videos.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we have number 13. Mr. Al Boughton?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I was a little shocked this week when I saw in the press that there's, out in Vancouver, there's a community resistance on putting BWCs on some of the police services outside of Peel. We've been in this with the BWCs for 3 years now, Deputy, roughly.
Essentially, since 2020 was our pilot.
Yeah, so we're into our fourth year. On the report, it says under cost and/or savings, as a revised agreement with Axon has been signed, and there'll be additional features, et cetera. And then talking about the funding. What's the life on the BWC that the officers are wearing? How often are we going to have to upgrade? And will that be part of what you're going to report to us? And it says in early 2024 that you're going to talk about the subsidy and where we're going. So will you be providing us with that information? And in other words, the useful life of the BWC, what we have to do, the new features, do you take what you have and enhance it? Can you enhance that? The hardware with additional software, that type of thing, so that we truly understand what the costs are and then how that relates to the costs on DEMS as well on a going forward basis.
Thank you, and I'll do that very succinctly. Because of the high compliance and the use of body-worn camera in this region, we have realized that our storage capacity was likely going to be insufficient in the coming years. So a new approach to that is a cost savings approach, more data for less money, was agreed to. We also ensured that the body-worn camera is on an evergreening cycle, which those costs are included in the contract. So based on the contract that we proposed to the board that was accepted, the body-worn camera hardware and software are all evergreened as part of those costs, and there'll be no further additional costs to the service for those. And that happens every 2 to 3 years, and generally because of the battery. And then last but not least, the additional features that will allow us to examine body-worn camera in conjunction with community and our exploration of artificial intelligence and how we can expedite redaction. That is also part of a piece that we're looking at this year and into next year.
One of the things that came out of the IACP conference was the storage of all this on BWCs, and one of the people made the presentation, showed this building that had computers in it that were storing this is for the Los Angeles, and the building is a mile long, and it's just full of hardware in order to keep this. And the United States say it's someone that kept 75 years. When they put it in, there's a length of time that they keep it, and I assume that the length of time that we would keep it would also be reflected in how much storage that we would need going forward, and all the costs, that cost, as well as DEMS and the BWC, should all be part of that, so we truly understand. And then we as a board will certainly need to know what the intentions are of PRP on the length of time that we keep it, and what we're going to use for storage going forward and all those other things. So I assume, again, that as per this correspondence, that your update, the next one, will deal with that as well, correct?
That's correct. And just for clarity, our storage agreement in this particular is for unlimited storage of body-worn cameras. So we're very fortunate. That way we'll continue to grow at no extra cost. And I think that the other pieces will come in the next report. I do, sorry, and I was speaking with the chief earlier, was going to make a suggestion that for the year 2024 reporting in 2025, that in order to provide more detailed and accurate data, that we asked that the Police Services Board report be moved to a February meeting, which allows us after the December break, which all the data is collected into January, allows us for deeper analysis considering all the extra information that will be provided. Thank you.
Mr. Amiratia?
Just another question I missed. In the section F, complaints and discipline, there are 3 sentences, and I'm trying to understand what's being said. Is the second sentence, there were 46 public complaints in which BWC was utilized and 0 complaints were substantiated. Is this saying that, we had 46 public complaints, but because of BWC footage, we were able to demonstrate they were not substantiated, or 46 complaints of misuse of BWC?
No, and thank you. That should be rewarded. 46 public complaints in which body-worn camera was used to assist the investigation, and those investigations were unsubstantiated for conduct against officers.
Okay, great. And that's really, I mean, for us, a big part of this, we have 2 important stakeholders, the community, of course, transparency, but also our officers in the day, in the world that we live in today, this gives them some confidence that there is a source of truth to their actions. And so this is very assuring that, we were able to investigate and a lot of these complaints are not substantiated. I guess my question, my follow-up would be, are there public complaints that came in which we didn't find, like BWC was not used, and therefore we could not investigate using BWC?
I believe, Mr. Tia, that last year, in 2022 for 2023's report, we outlined that. In 2023, we did not. We don't have that.
You don't have that information?
I'm sorry. There were no complaints in which body-worn camera was deemed not to be used in a complaint.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Len Carby?
Thank you for the report. Just for the purpose of the minutes, there's an item I want to just call out that speaks to a survey that is intended to be done in related to public trust around the use of body-worn cameras. And I wonder if, just for the purpose of the minutes, we could speak a little bit more about that process that will be done in conjunction with the OHRC project.
Sure, and we've done quite a bit of work ahead of this in relation to some of the commitments we've made to study body-worn camera. And in fact, I've had a discussion with our academic partners who are right now contemplating the methodology. And I'll just turn it over to Staff Superintendent Dirk Niles just to comment on that just a little further.
Sure, thank you, Deputy, and through you, Chair. Currently, what we're doing with the body-worn camera study is we have Dr. Alex Luscombe and a professor building the methodology out. One of the complex pieces they have to do is come up with a framework that's going to allow them to do natural language processing, where they need a linguistics professor to measure procedural justice and de-escalation. The elements of procedural justice are voice, neutrality, and trust and respect. And the challenge is for them to turn that from qualitative information into quantitative, something they can actually measure. So it's underway. That'll be year over year. And as we're building that out, as we work with the RAC, we are going to be satisfying the recommendation in relation to accountability and monitoring. And from our multi-year plan for the OHRC project, the Human Rights Project, completing the survey and producing that by calendar year end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think Mr. Alboughton had received and Mr. Amiratia had seconded. So thank you so much. Report is now received. That is the adjournment of the public meeting in camera session for our first meeting back 2024. So thank you so much. We're going to take a quick few minutes break and then we're going to go in camera. Thank you so much.